Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Red Room Stories. I know many of you tune into these tales to help you drift off to sleep. So, before we settle in, I'd love for each of you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're listening from. And if you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get comfortable, relax, and begin. In the quiet town of Ravenswood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, stood an old abandoned library. Its once grand facade was now crumbling, and the windows were shattered, giving it an eerie, haunted appearance. The townspeople avoided the place, whispering tales of strange occurrences and ghostly sightings. Despite these rumors, a young librarian named Clara was determined to uncover the library's secrets. Clara had always been fascinated by old books and forgotten stories. When she heard about the abandoned library, she couldn't resist the urge to explore it. One rainy evening, she gathered her courage and entered the building. The air was thick with dust, and the scent of old paper filled her nostrils. She moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she delved deeper into the library, Clara noticed strange markings on the walls. They seemed to be ancient symbols glowing faintly in the dark. She followed the markings to a hidden door at the back of the building. With a creak, the door opened to reveal a staircase leading down into darkness. Curiosity got the better of Clara, and she descended the stairs. At the bottom, she found a small, circular room filled with old, leather-bound books. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it lay an ancient, ornate book. The markings on the walls seemed to converge on this book, and Clara felt a strange pull towards it. She reached out and touched the book, and suddenly the room was filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, Clara found herself standing in a different place. The walls were gone, and she was surrounded by a dense, misty forest. The air was cold, and she could hear whispers all around her. "Who are you?" a voice echoed through the mist. Clara turned around and saw a figure standing behind her. It was a man, his face pale and his eyes hollow. He introduced himself as Elias, a former librarian who had been trapped in the library for centuries. Elias explained that the book Clara had touched was a portal to a realm of lost souls. The library had been built on an ancient site of dark magic, and over the years it had accumulated the spirits of those who had been drawn into its depths. Elias had been trying to find a way to free the trapped souls, but he needed Clara's help. Clara, though frightened, agreed to help. Elias led her through the misty forest, showing her how to use the ancient symbols to guide the souls towards the light. As they worked, Clara felt the presence of the souls around her, their whispers growing louder and more desperate. One night, as they were working, Clara heard a voice she recognized. It was her grandmother who had passed away years ago. Clara was overjoyed to see her, but her grandmother's face was filled with sorrow. "You must leave this place, Clara," her grandmother said. "The darkness is too strong, and it will consume you." Clara hesitated, torn between her desire to help the trapped souls and her fear of the darkness. Elias, sensing her hesitation, urged her to continue. "We are almost there," he said. "We can free them, but we must act quickly." With renewed determination, Clara and Elias worked through the night. They managed to guide most of the souls towards the light, but as dawn approached, they realized that one soul remained trapped. It was Elias himself, bound to the library by a powerful curse. Clara knew what she had to do. She reached out to Elias, and with a final, desperate effort, she freed him from the curse. The darkness that had consumed the library began to dissipate, and the whispers ceased. Elias, now free, thanked Clara and vanished into the light. Clara found herself back in the library. The ancient book closed and the room filled with sunlight. She knew that the library was no longer a place of darkness, but a sanctuary for lost souls. She decided to stay in Ravenswood, dedicating herself to preserving the library and the stories within it. As she left the library, Clara felt a sense of peace. She knew that the souls were finally at rest, and the darkness had been banished. But as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that the library was still watching her, its secrets hidden deep within its walls. In the remote countryside, where the fog often clung to the ground like a shroud, stood Blackwood Manor. The grand, old house had been abandoned for decades, its once magnificent architecture now a crumbling relic of the past. Locals whispered tales of strange occurrences and ghostly apparitions, but none dared to venture inside. That is, until a young historian named Evelyn decided to investigate the manor's dark history. Evelyn had always been fascinated by the supernatural, and the stories of Blackwood Manor intrigued her. Armed with her research and a sense of curiosity, she set out to uncover the truth behind the manor's haunting. As she approached the house, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. With a deep breath, Evelyn pushed open the creaking front door and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with dust-covered furniture and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. She moved cautiously through the hallways, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she explored, she noticed strange markings on the wall symbols that seemed to be etched into the very stone. In the library, Evelyn found an old, leather-bound journal. It belonged to the manor's former owner, a man named Jonathan Blackwood. The journal detailed his experiments with dark magic and his attempts to summon spirits. Evelyn's heart raced as she read the entries, realizing that the manor was a portal to another realm. As night fell, Evelyn felt the temperature drop, and the air grew colder. She heard whispers in the darkness, voices that seemed to be calling her name. She tried to ignore them, but the whispers grew louder and more insistent. She felt a presence behind her and turned to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. "Who are you?" Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be a woman in old-fashioned clothing. She introduced herself as Margaret, Jonathan Blackwood's wife. Margaret explained that her husband's experiments had gone terribly wrong, trapping her and other spirits within the manor. She pleaded with Evelyn to help them find peace. Evelyn, though frightened, agreed to help. Margaret led her to the basement, where a large, ancient book lay on a pedestal. The book was bound in black leather, and its pages were filled with dark incantations. Margaret explained that the book was the key to freeing the trapped spirits, but it was also the source of the manor's darkness. Together, they began to recite the incantations, their voices rising in unison. As they did, the air grew thicker, and the whispers grew louder. Evelyn felt a strange energy building around her, and she knew that they were close to breaking the curse. But just as they were about to finish, Evelyn felt a sharp pain in her chest. She looked down to see a hand emerging from the shadows, clutching her heart. The hand belonged to Jonathan Blackwood, who had returned to stop them. Evelyn struggled to break free, but his grip was too strong. Margaret, desperate to save her, threw herself at Jonathan, distracting him long enough for Evelyn to break free. With a final, desperate effort, Evelyn finished the incantation. The room was filled with a blinding light, and the spirits were released. Jonathan Blackwood, unable to withstand the light, was consumed by the darkness he had created. Margaret, now free, thanked Evelyn and vanished into the light. As the light faded, Evelyn found herself alone in the basement. The book lay open on the pedestal, its pages blank. She knew that the spirits were finally at peace, but she also knew that the manor would never be the same. She left the house, feeling a sense of relief and sorrow. As she walked away, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the manor was still watching her. She knew that the darkness had been banished, but the memories of the spirits would remain. Blackwood Manor would always be a place of mystery and sorrow, a reminder of the consequences of delving into the unknown. In the quaint village of Willowbrook, nestled between rolling hills and dense woods, there was an old abandoned mansion known as Greystone Hall. The mansion had been vacant for decades, its once grand facade now covered in ivy and its windows shattered. The villagers whispered about strange occurrences and ghostly sightings, but none dared to venture inside. That is, until a young artist named Emily arrived in Willowbrook, seeking inspiration for her paintings. Emily had always been drawn to the supernatural, and the stories of Greystone Hall intrigued her. She decided to explore the mansion, hoping to capture its eerie beauty in her artwork. As she approached the mansion, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. With a deep breath, Emily pushed open the creaking front door and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with dust-covered furniture and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. She moved cautiously through the hallways, her footsteps echoing in the silence. As she explored, she noticed strange markings on the wall symbols that seemed to be etched into the very stone. In the grand hall, Emily found an old ornate mirror. It was covered in dust, but the glass was still intact. She wiped away the grime and saw her reflection staring back at her. But something was different. Her reflection seemed to be moving on its own, as if it were a separate entity. She felt a chill run down her spine and quickly turned away. As she continued her exploration, Emily heard whispers in the darkness. The voices seemed to be calling her name, growing louder and more insistent. She felt a presence behind her, and turned to see a shadowy figure standing in the doorway. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be a man in old-fashioned clothing. He introduced himself as Henry Greystone, the mansion's former owner. Henry explained that the mirror was cursed, trapping the souls of those who had looked into it. He had been trying to break the curse for years, but needed Emily's help. Emily, though frightened, agreed to help. Henry led her to the basement, where an ancient leather-bound book lay on a pedestal. The book was bound in black leather, and its pages were filled with dark incantations. Together they began to recite the incantations, their voices rising in unison. As they did, the air grew thicker, and the whispers grew louder. Emily felt a strange energy building around her, and she knew that they were close to breaking the curse. But just as they were about to finish, Emily felt a sharp pain in her chest. She looked down to see a hand emerging from the shadows, clutching her heart. The hand belonged to a woman named Eliza, Henry's wife. Eliza had been trapped in the mirror for centuries and was determined to remain there. Emily struggled to break free, but Eliza's grip was too strong. Henry, desperate to save Emily, threw himself at Eliza, distracting her long enough for Emily to break free. With a final, desperate effort, Emily finished the incantation. The room was filled with a blinding light, and the spirits were released. Eliza, unable to withstand the light, was consumed by the darkness she had created. Henry, now free, thanked Emily and vanished into the light. With a final, desperate effort, Emily finished the incantation. The room was filled with a blinding light, and the spirits were released. Eliza, unable to withstand the light, was consumed by the darkness she had created. Henry, now free, thanked Emily and vanished into the light. As the light faded, Emily found herself alone in the basement. The book lay open on the pedestal, its pages blank. She knew that the spirits were finally at peace, but she also knew that the mansion would never be the same. She left the house, feeling a sense of relief and sorrow. As she walked away, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the mansion was still watching her. She knew that the darkness had been banished, but the memories of the spirits would remain. Greystone Hall would always be a place of mystery and sorrow, a reminder of the consequences of delving into the unknown. In the small, fog-shrouded town of Hollow Creek, nestled in a valley surrounded by ancient woods, there was a peculiar shop known as the Clockmaker's Haven. The shop, with its cobblestone facade and ornate windows, had been in the town for generations. It was famous for its intricate clocks and mechanical marvels, but it was also rumored to be haunted by the spirits of its former owner and his apprentice. The current owner, a reclusive man named Mr. Thorne, had inherited the shop from his grandfather. He was known for his exceptional craftsmanship and his mysterious demeanor. One day, a young woman named Lily arrived in Hollow Creek, seeking a new beginning. She had heard about the shop and was intrigued by its history. Mr. Thorne reluctantly agreed to take her on as his apprentice. Lily quickly discovered that the shop was unlike any other place she had ever seen. The walls were lined with clocks of all shapes and sizes, each one more intricate than the last. But there was something unsettling about the place. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. One evening, as Lily was cleaning the shop, She noticed a peculiar clock hidden in the corner. It was an old, ornate timepiece with a face that seemed to glow in the dark. She reached out to touch it, and suddenly, the shop was filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, Lily found herself in a different place. The shop had transformed into a dark, shadowy realm, and the clocks had come to life. "Who are you?" a voice echoed through the darkness. Lily turned around and saw a figure standing behind her. It was a man, his face pale and his eyes hollow. He introduced himself as Victor, the former apprentice of Mr. Thorne's grandfather. Victor explained that he had been trapped in the shop for decades, cursed by a dark magic that had been unleashed by an ancient clock. Victor led Lily through the shadowy realm, showing her how to use the clocks to navigate the darkness. As they moved, Lily felt the presence of other spirits around her, their whispers growing louder and more desperate. She realized that the shop was a prison for lost souls, and the clocks were the keys to their freedom. One night, as they were working to free the trapped spirits, Lily heard a voice she recognized. It was Mr. Thorne, his voice filled with sorrow and urgency. He appeared before her, revealing that he had been aware of the curse all along but had been powerless to break it. "You must find the ancient clock," Mr. Thorne said. "It is the source of the darkness. Only by destroying it can you free the spirits and end the curse." With renewed determination, Lily and Victor searched the shop for the ancient clock. They found it hidden in the basement, its face glowing with an eerie light. As they approached, the clock began to emit a low, menacing hum. Victor, realizing that he could not survive the destruction of the clock, sacrificed himself to give Lily the strength she needed. With Victor's help, Lily destroyed the ancient clock, and the shop was filled with a blinding light. The spirits were released, and the darkness was banished. Mr. Thorne, now free from the curse, thanked Lily and vanished into the light. As the light faded, Lily found herself back in the shop. The clocks had stopped ticking, and the shadows had receded. She knew that the spirits were finally at peace, but she also knew that the shop would never be the same. She left the shop feeling a sense of relief and sorrow. As she walked away, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that the shop was still watching her. She knew that the darkness had been banished, but the memories of the spirits would remain. The Clockmaker's Haven would always be a place of mystery and sorrow, a reminder of the consequences of delving into the unknown. In the secluded village of Eldenwood, where the mist often clung to the ground like a ghostly shroud, there was a place known as the Whispering Well. The well, located at the edge of the village, was surrounded by ancient gnarled trees that seemed to lean in, listening. The villagers spoke in hushed tones about the well, claiming it was haunted by the spirits of those who had met their end there. Despite the warnings, a young woman named Alara felt compelled to uncover its secrets. Alara had always been drawn to the mysterious and the unknown. Her curiosity was piqued by the tales of the Whispering Well, and she decided to explore it one moonlit night. As she approached the well, she felt a strange chill in the air, and the shadows seemed to shift and move on their own. The well itself was an old stone structure, its surface covered in moss and lichen. With a deep breath, Alara leaned over the well and peered into its depths. The water below was dark and still, reflecting the moonlight in a way that made it seem almost alive. As she stared, she heard faint whispers echoing from within the well. The voices were soft and indistinct, but they seemed to be calling her name. "Who's there?" Alara called out, her voice trembling slightly. The whispers grew louder, and she felt a presence behind her. Turning around, she saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods. It was a woman, her face pale and her eyes hollow. She introduced herself as Seraphina, a spirit who had been trapped near the well for centuries. Seraphina explained that the well was a portal to another realm, and the spirits of those who had died violently were trapped between worlds. She pleaded with Alara to help her and the other spirits find peace. Alara, though frightened, agreed to help. Seraphina led her to an old, hidden cave beneath the well. Inside the cave, Alara found an ancient stone altar. On it lay a small, ornate box. Seraphina explained that the box contained a powerful artifact that could free the trapped spirits, but it was cursed and dangerous. With Seraphina's guidance, Alara carefully opened the box. Inside, she found a small, glowing crystal. As Alara held the crystal, she felt a surge of energy coursing through her. The whispers grew louder, and the spirits began to gather around her. She realized that she needed to place the crystal back into the well to break the curse. With Seraphina's help, she carefully lowered the crystal into the water. As the crystal touched the water, the well began to glow with an eerie light. The whispers grew louder, and the spirits seemed to be in agony. Alara felt a strange pull, as if the well were trying to draw her in. She struggled to hold on, but the force was too strong. Just as she felt herself being pulled into the well, a hand grabbed hers. It was her childhood friend, Marcus, who had followed her to the well, sensing that something was wrong. With his help, Alara managed to break free from the well's grasp. The light faded, and the whispers ceased. The spirits, now freed, vanished into the night. Alara and Marcus left the well, feeling a sense of relief and sorrow. They knew that the spirits were finally at peace, but the well would always be a place of mystery and danger. As they walked away, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that the well was still watching her. She knew that the darkness had been banished, but the memories of the spirits would remain. The Whispering Well would always be a haunting reminder of the thin veil between worlds,